Can you imagine if whenever you felt bad, you'd know why and how to feel better? That's what we're going to talk about in our podcast today, emotional liberation. Ready?
I am ready.
We have three questions, which is the name of our podcast, Three Questions. And every month we do a video where we talk about some subject that's related to healthy relationships. Um, this month we're talking about emotional liberation. And the first question is, what is emotional liberation?
I think I've known this intellectually for a while, that I'm responsible for my own feelings and other people are responsible for their feelings. So that's the basic definition for me. And at the beginning of this, you asked, "Are you ready?" And that's interesting because we've had this topic in mind to do for a while, but I really wasn't ready for it. And just because just recently I've been able to really understand what that means, that I'm responsible for my own feelings. And the NVC book, Nonviolent Communication book, talks about that in depth, but I still wasn't able to sort of go beyond intellectually understanding that I'm responsible for my own feelings. I've recently been looking at these videos by these people I call the woo-woo people. It's this wu-wei wisdom videos, this Taoist monk and his wife, David Lees, and his wife, Alexandria. And they really talk about you creating your own emotions. And that was sort of a change point for me, understanding that I create my own emotions. So yeah, going beyond that you're responsible for and in charge of your own emotions, but you're actually creating them, I think sort of encapsulates the definition of emotional liberation for me.
Mm-hmm. I love those wu-wei people, by the way. I feel like they're like our heterosexual British doppelgangers. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll do a video where we either comment on their video sometime, or who knows, maybe they'd collaborate on a video.
Yeah. Hey, let us know if you want to do a collab. We're in. Okay. On a scale of 0 to 10, how much compassion do you have for yourself and others?
That varies from day to day. And it's not something that's a constant. It's a spectrum, and it depends on lots of things. Self-care regime, how much sleep I'm getting, what else is going on in my life. For example, right now, the audience doesn't know this, but we've talked about the little 93-year-old that we were taking care of, my mother-in-law. She passed away recently. So it's hard to stay in that place of feeling good and having enough compassion for myself and others. It's easier to get irritated when you're going through things such as grief, or such as little sleep. And that we're actually doing both with grief and little sleep. So yeah, that varies from day to day.
And so where do you think it would be today, given that you're in grief and not sleeping enough?
Yeah, I think right now I'm maybe at a 4 or 5. Yeah. Not getting didn't get great sleep last night actually. But yeah, about a 4 or 5. So there's a lot of variables that go into that. Always working towards knowing and wanting to be as compassionate as possible to myself and others, but other things play a role.
Mm-hmm. In what situations do you need more practice having compassion for yourself and others?
Yeah, this is a good one. So it's the same for myself and others. I always struggle when I feel like I should know know something. And I also struggle when being compassionate to others, when I feel like they should know. Kind of like this idea of, they should know how to do that, or they should know better, than to do that, or I should know how to do something, or I do know better than to do that, yet it happened anyway. So I can be a sort of a harsh critic when I'm in that sort of a negative frame of mind. And I'm going to go back to the wu-wei wisdom folks. They talk about this thing when you're comparing, you're criticizing, or you're judging. That's when you get involved in these sorts of things. Sort of when I'm thinking that someone should know that, I'm actually comparing them to maybe someone who knows better, judging them for not knowing, and also with myself. I'm comparing myself to someone who should know, or comparing myself to that I do know, or and judging myself for not knowing, and that stands in the way of compassion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your turn.
Mm-hmm. My turn.
Okay. Sue,
Yes.
what is emotional liberation?
Emotional liberation. What? That's about taking responsibility for your feelings and understanding that everyone is responsible for their own feelings. Not just me, you too.
Yeah.
We're both responsible for our feelings and our needs and expressing them. And um, to me, that gives me a whole lot of power, because if I know that and I know how to manage my feelings, then I can be happy no matter what's happening. You know, pretty awesome.
Yeah. To
Mm-hmm.
understand it to that level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of times when I've expected people to, being responsible for your own needs,
Mm-hmm.
people to, maybe I said it once or I hinted at it, and then hadn't directly said, but was irritated because, well, don't they know I want that? You know, like sort of blaming them for not being a mind reader,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is just totally unfair.
I think that happens a lot in couples.
Yeah, this was actually in my previous relationship where that happened.
The other part of emotional liberation, I think, is being free to be compassionate and loving with everyone, including ourselves, right? For me, the being very compassionate and loving with other people came naturally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ever since I was a little kid, that seemed easy, to love others and be compassionate towards them, even if they acted horribly. I just like got them. Like, oh, I understand their dysfunction and their pain, you know? But for myself, that didn't happen until much later in life, where I started giving myself the same level of love and compassion that I gave others.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually mentioned that part of it, because that's an interesting thing for me. So much of it, intellectually, right? But sometimes I think when I would be compassionate, sort of get others and try to think I was being compassionate, I would be being codependent, because I would actually, even though I was like, oh yeah, I understand where they're coming from. Yeah, I have compassion for them. It would delve into like not understanding where I began and they ended, and almost feeling their feelings, or thinking it was my job to, fix it, or, yeah. So there's like this sort of fine line of understanding there. Yeah.
Well, and that's the line, I think, is like, you can have compassion for someone, but you don't want to take on responsibility for their problems, right? That's where the line is for me, anyway. Like, I can have all kinds of compassion for anybody, but I don't want to feel like I'm responsible for fixing their problems. I only want to feel responsible for fixing my own, which are significant. Let's just be honest. Like, I have enough of my own work to do. That's part of what helped me. Well, what helps me in my recovery from codependency is recognizing that sometimes when I'm looking out, I'm just avoiding doing the work that's harder. You know, I'm just avoiding dealing with my compulsive behaviors. I'm avoiding dealing with the inner healing work that still needs to be done.
Yeah, it's semantically tricky though, in a way, because it's sort of like we're not responsible for others solving others' problems, but then sometimes they're asking us for help. So if we're helping them, it just gets emotionally, not emotionally, but like tricky, like which parts of it are it just can easily tip into codependence, I think, for some people who aren't practiced at it, as I'm not practiced at it. So,
Yeah, for sure. It's tricky all along the way, believe me. And I think it gets trickier depending on what your circumstances are, right?
Yeah.
So, like you were talking about the mourning process and how that changes your mindset. I think that when I'm in mourning, or I'm just under a lot of stress, I tend to have more blurred boundaries.
That's it, right? It's the boundaries. Yeah. Blurred
Mhm.
boundaries. That's a very important point. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much compassion do you have for yourself and others?
Let's see. Today, I'm feeling about an 8.5.
Cool.
8.5 for myself and others. I think primarily because of just the grieving process we've been going through. I noticed that in the last couple weeks, I've been more critical of myself and less patient with myself and others, you know? So, yeah.
I've not seen it. You've been really patient with me.
You're so sweet, baby.
In what situations do you think you need more practice having compassion for yourself and others?
In what situations? I think number one would be in situations where I'm under stress, right? Um, I need more practice also around time. So I think it's good that I value my time and I, carefully plan out my activities every day, except for Sundays. I don't plan Sundays. But I think that I'd like to have more um, patience and compassion with myself and others when it comes to time. I think even though I've relaxed a lot over the years, that I could use more downtime. And this is like, you probably think it's hysterical that this is the relaxed version of Sue. You probably couldn't have handled me 20 years ago, right? So, yeah, I just think where time's concerned, I really need to practice some more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're good at having compassion about it, but you do, yeah, like I remember you saying to me, like, you just don't know how much time things take, right? I was like, yeah, I just do it till I'm done. I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting if that's one you feel like you need to work on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right, Hopeful Tribe. That was fun.
Yeah, good answers.
Put in the
Love that.
comments below what your number is as far as your compassion for yourself and others. And we hope you feel loved and hopeful until we see you again. Bye.
Bye-bye.